Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode 102. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, and commented on the show. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to thank our sponsors. Family owned and operated since 1976, Samson Equipment has been specializing in full turnkey weight room build-outs from planning to installation. Based in Las Cruces, New Mexico, Samson provides professional weight room solutions for those looking to lead the way in advancing our strength and conditioning profession. Coaches relied on Samson as their top resource for all their weight room renovations because they provide the finest materials and design, product customization, and the most reputable customer service in the business. If you're in the market for elite level strength equipment, weight room renovations, or upgrades, be sure to check out samsonequipment.com to see how Samson has been delivering clients a long-lasting yet affordable product for over 4 decades. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Trusted since 2012, Cerberus is making the best strongman, powerlifting, and strength sports equipment and accessories, ensuring the ultimate competitive edge. Every one of their products is tried, tested, and proven by top-level athletes worldwide. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out cerberusstrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_GAME to save on your next order. And in this week's episode, I'm joined by DJ Melgar. DJ is an assistant strength conditioning coach at Hofstra University, where he works with the Pride's men's soccer, wrestling, men's lacrosse, and men's and women's tennis programs. While an undergraduate at Hofstra, he was the president of the Exercise Medicine Club for 3 years from 2018 to 2021, prior to him beginning his coaching career as an intern with the strength conditioning department in the spring of 2021. He was later elevated to a graduate assistant in the fall of 21 and a full-time assistant coach in the spring of 2022. Additionally, Melgar also spent time as a physical therapist aide and assistant at NYPT and Wellness from 2019 to 2020, where he aided physical therapists with patient rehabilitation treatment. Melgar is an avid lifter. This past summer, he competed in his first powerlifting meet, earning a total of 1,086 pounds in the 90-kilo weight class, going 7 for 9, with more to come in the future. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach DJ Melgar. What's going on, everybody? Today, I am joined by Coach DJ Melgar. What's going on today, Coach?
Nick, how we doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. It's good to kind of connect over this a little bit of lull we got during the winter break. So I'm excited to get you on. I know it looks nice out your window right now, so Hofstra must not be snowing yet.
No snow. It's pretty chilly. I think we're like maybe high 20s, but as long as the wind chill is down, it's not too bad. So as long as the sun's out too, I'm a big fan of the sun.
There you go. Hey, well, let's get right into it. Really wanting to know how you got first started into the strength game. Kind of talk about your introduction, like training, sports you played growing up, leading into like what you've been currently doing, because I know you just competed in your first powerlifting meet as well.
Yep. Yeah. So I kind of started, kind of like everyone else growing up playing sports. I played baseball mainly, and then in the off season be like basketball, a little football, a little wrestling as well. Yeah, no, I came from a very competitive baseball town. I think when you're like, we meet the varsity coach when we're like maybe like 7 years old, and he kind of like keeps his eye on you guys as we're in middle school, kind of coming up through high school. So it's very baseball focused town, which I love. And he ran the program almost like a college program, I would say, if not exactly like that. So sports from a young age. And then I didn't get introduced into the weight room until probably my freshman year of high school, 4 football workouts over the summer. That was probably the first time I ever stepped foot into a legitimate weight room, did a legitimate, workout with a team in a team setting. And but yeah, during that time, I really didn't know anything about training. I was just kind of going in there, trying to get as sore as possible and leave in some pain. But no, I enjoyed training. I loved it. The group aspect, being with my friends and kind of just pushing each other was really cool. But funny with that, I just didn't know how to do it. So like we would like do sets of 10 on squat and then just go right over to the bench and then deadlift. And then we'd have like a game later that afternoon, not knowing that it would affect us later. So got in trouble a little bit there from some outside coaches, but it was good. It kind of planted the seed for training. And then I probably didn't really get serious about it until I got into college. So I started doing just like the regular typical bodybuilding split. A lot of YouTube videos, a lot of YouTube University, just watching different bodybuilders. I was a big like Steve Cook guy, just watching, what he did and then just kind of taking his exact workout, bringing it into the gym and kind of altering it for what I liked. And then, so yeah, first 2 years of college, got pretty serious into training. And I would say I didn't get into athletic training until about my sophomore year. I started kind of training more for like performance and just kind of just feeling overall better. And then I actually tore my ACL. I tore my ACL, my LCL, my popliteal tendon, and my hamstring playing baseball my sophomore year. So in 2019, yeah, that was pretty bad. But that kind of flipped the switch more as like, all right, we're not just training for aesthetics. We can actually train to like kind of feel better. And at the time it was a blessing in disguise. I definitely wasn't happy that I tore my ACL, but I was like, hopefully I can get something out of that. So after that injury, I just kind of took nutrition and kind of health and just overall training much more seriously. And then further down the line, my senior year, so this is after I tore my ACL, I was kind of planning to do PT. Got introduced to the head strength coach here, Coach Jimmy Prendergast. We kind of spoke. We spoke about an internship. Ended up interning with them my spring semester of my senior year, and I think it took all about 2 weeks before I flipped the switch from PT to strength and conditioning. So started with sports, just kind of regular working out, an injury, and then bumping into the strength staff here.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a lot of coaches' introduction into like strength and conditioning. There's a lot of people that have kind of gone through a serious injury and then it might have flipped a switch in a different direction to realize that like the way you were training before wasn't necessarily the most optimal. It was just the only way you knew how. And then you kind of found a love for coaching, or kind of, for some people, it's the writing on the wall that maybe you weren't going to be able to take that talent as far as you like it to be, but that like the weight room is an avenue that can kind of excel and take you past where you thought was possible just on talent alone. And I think that's why it's a lot of people stay in the profession too. That's gnarly. That injury were all those injuries the same like
Yeah,
incidents, like the same acute incidents?
yeah. So I was playing baseball. I think it was on a night game, and I remember I made an error the inning before, so I got on base the following inning, trying to make up for that error. A little aggressive on the base paths. I was running home from third. The catcher caught the ball, so I just planted my foot, hyperextended my knee, and then like kind of like catapulted myself over the catcher. I went to get up, and my knee just like gave out. So yeah, it was 3 ligaments, and then my hamstring, and then yeah, 2 surgeries, one in 2019 and one in 2020.
Wow. Yeah, that's a steep cost. And I'm sure the rehab and everything was not an easy process. Did you know that like physical therapy was like initially that's what you wanted to do before like this injury kind of occurred, or like at the end of that, like what really sparked it to be more on the performance side versus like the rehab side? Because it could have gone both ways, like understanding like the importance of coming off one of those injuries and kind of returning to it. You could have really found a love for like that rehab process, but you could all find a love like for what you did and the performance side of it, and hopefully trying to alleviate and prevent some of those issues from actually occurring in the first place.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's where I kind of heard it was that's where I was trying to find like the blessing in disguise. I kind of got into this guy, Dr. Wesley Wang. He's a PT out of, I think it's Maryland. I want to say it's Pro Baller or maybe Baller PT, something along those lines. But he tore his ACL, and he was always saying that it kickstarted his career. If he can go back, he wouldn't change a thing. So during the time, I was just like, like how can I use this to my benefit a little bit? So just going to PT, I knew it was kind of something I wanted to do. Before that, I was thinking about being a dentist, and then I quickly found out that wasn't in my plans. So I was like, all right, let's do PT. And then while I was rehabbing, I'm like, all right, this is a good chance to kind of just see what physical therapy is from a patient's point of view, but also from being a physical therapist as well. Like being the patient, I got to see how patients felt during the process, how they were treated and everything. And then I actually just got some shadowing hours in at that same facility. So I got to work as like a PT aide. Again, nothing wrong with the profession. I just kind of knew it wasn't for me. That pace, a lot of people come in. It is a inconvenience to be in physical therapy because you're injured. You may have to miss work. It's taking out time from your day. So kind of just the energy in the room sometimes wasn't always great. And I can't blame any of those people. But I just knew I kind of wanted to be in a little higher energy environment. So I was like, all right, maybe we can do physical therapy for, specifically athletes in a college setting or in a sports rehab setting. So that's where I kind of shifted towards performance.
Nice. Yeah, I'd say that most people given the choice, they would opt out of rehab like due to an injury for sure. It's a definitely a difficult, it's a different type of way you have to speak to those kind of clients and like trying to persuade them almost to do those things just to get back to normal. Some of them are just like, oh, I'm just going to accept it what it is. I know that the settings are different for every kind of PT realm you're working in, or if you're actually working with athletes that are coming back or kind of general population or elderly. So it's different, but you're right. It's a different type of pace. Like when I originally was going to school was first to be an athletic trainer. And I found out day one that was not my cup of tea. And I was out of there fast and still respect them. We work with them all the time. So not gonna hate on it, but definitely pick the right of the two, in
Yeah.
my opinion, for sure. Hey, so kind of touch on now being a full-time strength conditioning coach. You're in a very unique position too, because went to undergrad, like interned, graduate assistant, now full-time assistant, all at Hofstra. Kind of talk about like what the steps were like for you kind of leading up to what your current position is, and kind of touch on nowadays like what you're doing day to day as part of the full-time staff.
Yeah, for sure. I started during my spring semester senior year. That was when I first interned with the staff here. Again, quickly shifted from PT to strength and conditioning. So I stayed on as a volunteer that summer. Started studying for my CSCS, prepping for that. I think I got that in around August of that summer, just so I could be a grad assistant that fall. So get some team responsibilities, some programming experience, kind of taking like that next step. So I was given golf, men's, women's golf, and track and cross country. So a couple smaller teams, but really good, really valuable just to get that experience in. Kind of first time coaching the floor by myself, and getting full team responsibilities. So that was really big. And then finished that semester as a grad assistant. And that winter break, we had two of our three full timers. They got great positions elsewhere, so they stepped out. So we went from a staff of three full-time assistants and one grad assistant to just one full-timer, and then myself. So me and Coach Ash, we sat down and kind of we have two weight rooms on campus, so we split the teams in half. And so I took one weight room, she took the other, and I think we had around like probably 8 to 10 teams each. So that was a really big transition going from just focusing on the golfs and track and cross country to having, like I had men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse, wrestling, baseball, women's soccer, women's tennis. So it definitely added a lot to the workload. But being so raw in the field and so new to it, that was huge because, instantly you go from programming for only a couple teams to programming for a lot. You get endless hours on the floor, endless coaching opportunities. So that was really big for my development as a coach. And again, like I wasn't, if you asked me if I was ready for that step, I would have said no. But it was kind of good just to be thrown into the fire because, you're never ready for the next step. But, when you're just in it, you got to kind of just figure it out on the fly.
No, yeah, you're like you said, you're kind of thrown to the wolves. It's trial by fire. And most places you don't get that opportunity to do it. That's when we start looking at interns and graduate assistants, like potentially to hire, you start looking at some of the people that come up from like some of the Power Five, like Division I high programs. Oftentimes they don't even have the ability to like actually take a hold of a program. Like it's different everywhere you go, but a lot of them are just kind of assisting in a different capacity. Maybe over the course of time they get to help, but rarely do you get to see the point where you're having multiple teams. And like some of the bigger like contact sports or like collision sports too. Like you got that with lacrosse, like wrestling obviously is a big sport as well too. Like it's a no joke one that crosses both semesters as well. It's a high profile team. So to have to take on 10 like right
Yeah.
away and basically run a facility on your own, like uh, you definitely are getting your hours worth there. And like you said, I think that's invaluable experience that most coaches don't really accumulate over the course of maybe even 2 years as a graduate assistant that you probably got in a month. Just the
Yeah.
amount of time that you're on the floor with different teams, with different types of programs and cultures, and having to program all that yourself and be responsible for all that. Like it's a lot to kind of burden. So there's a good reason why they definitely promoted you from that point on.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was kind of like the way I looked at it, it was like a 3 month interview. So I interviewed for the position in January, and then they gave me an interim. So I kind of knew I was like, all right, if I do a good job this semester, there's a good chance I'll get promoted full time come the summer. So yeah, no, it was definitely a lot. It was tough, wasn't easy. I think we had like the first team would come in around 5:30. The last team would end around like 4:15, and then I was still in school, so I would just shoot over to class right after that. So long days, but I knew that the experience was again, like you said, invaluable. And it would go longer than just that one semester. So it was all in for that semester.
Definitely. Did things start to kind of calm down after that spring semester kind of finished off and then like they took away that interim title and everything now?
Yeah, so luckily once that semester ended, we got full staff plus one more. So we went from three full timers to four. So we were able to kind of split the teams up a little bit more evenly. And then I went from all those teams to now my current team responsibilities, which are men's lacrosse, wrestling, men's women's tennis, and men's soccer. So
Okay.
definitely a lighter load. But now with the lighter load, I was just able to give those teams more of myself. So still busy, but definitely calmed down from what it was then.
Definitely. Yeah. And then even though having that experience in your back pocket prepares you for having larger teams or kind of being prepared if someone's coming in late or if you kind of have to take over for someone else that's sick or like down for another meeting, like you know that you can handle that if that ever pops up again too. And most people never even have are put in that kind of pressure situation. But for you to already have gone through it and understand like this is what happens when you're running the ship kind of by
Yeah.
yourself in one facility, it's good to know in the back of your mind that it can be done. What would you say like to someone that's kind of going into their first position, maybe that kind of shocked you when you first got a hold of maybe either 10 teams or when like things calmed down and you guys were a full staff again? Like what was kind of something that you weren't as prepared for that you would have liked to been a little bit more prepared for, just knowing that coaches always like think that they could do a little bit better at?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough question. I think definitely something that surprised me was just how much further, I guess, the relationships as a strength coach extend outside of the weight room. As an intern, I feel like you really just I was kind of just really sitting in the weight room and the strength sessions, conditioning sessions, either in the weight room or on the field. Never really got to see those upstairs meetings with coaches and kind of listening to dialogue between head sports coach and the assigned strength coach. So just kind of moving into that role, that was definitely different. Having to have schedule and have meetings with different sports coaches who have different beliefs. So one coach may want to go all in on strength work, where another coach may want to go all in on just speed and agility. So kind of learning how to adapt to different head coaches and different team cultures outside of the weight room. That was definitely different for sure. That I didn't see as an intern.
Do you think that like you have to be in a full-time position or like even a graduate assistant position where you kind of have a little bit more reign to experience that? Or is there anything that like full-time coaches can do a better job or kind of simulate in a way to kind of prepare interns for that like outreach? Because I think you're absolutely right. Most interns or anybody that comes into a program, the only thing they really see is like the four walls of the weight room. And they're just trying to like accumulate coaching experience and on the floor time as much as possible. And they might go on the field and help out with conditioning, speed agility sessions and stuff like that. Or do you think that they just have to wait for it and just get as much time on the floor coaching as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that probably full timers can definitely take a look at, even ourselves here at Hofstra. I think maybe just bringing the intern in for like a checkup meeting with the head coaches, just kind of just even just having them to just sit there and listen to the conversations you're having, whether it's setting goals at the beginning of the semester or kind of recapping at the end of the semester. I think it's very valuable. It could be something for sure that they can learn from. We've done stuff here like giving them hypothetical situations. So we'll sit in like an intern meeting, and us as a strength staff will pretend to be say like a sport coach and the sporting staff and give them a scenario. Hey, you're a first year strength coach, you're coming to a program. The head coach doesn't believe in the weight room. What's your strategy to get buy-in? I think those are good first steps and they're necessary. But I think you could definitely probably bring, as long as it's okay with the sport coach, why not bring interns into those meetings or bring a grad assistant, someone that's shown they're reliable and they're shown they're serious about the career and the profession. I think the more experience, the better for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've done in the past with certain ones, like certain GAs or interns that have kind of like enveloped themselves and developed a good relationship with the athletes. And I try to introduce them to the coaches in the beginning, especially if a coach comes into the weight room and is like, who the hell is this person like working with my team too? Depending on what the coach is, some of them come in pretty hot about that. They want specific people working with their team. So being able to introduce them to the coaching staff and kind of build some credibility off them, I think that's a great idea. And it's good to kind of like simulate that as well with your guys' coaching staff too, so that they're a little bit more prepared for it. Is there anything that else like for your interns that preparing or maybe even some of your GAs, if you still have that GA program going, um, is there anything that you really preach to them as like really big keys of success to try to help prepare them for their first job, whether it be getting promoted at Hofstra or moving on to take on a full-time position somewhere else? Is there anything that's like a key that now your staff really harps on so that they can secure that position and be successful in year one?
Yeah, I think buy-in. That's probably my biggest one. Getting buy-in from the athletes. Our former head, one of my mentors, Coach Jimmy Prendergast, biggest piece of advice he gave me. I think everyone quotes him on this: is the athletes, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I think that's huge. Definitely still live by that with every year, every new set of athletes that come in. So I think that's invaluable. Making yourself known as a coach that cares about their athletes and kind of cares about them more long term than just that 1 hour lifting session. I think that's huge. So getting the buy-in from the athletes, and then if the coaching staff sees that the athletes are bought into your program, I think it'll just go further. It'll allow them to buy into you as well. So you're getting the buy-in from the coaching staff and the athletes as well. I think that's huge. That has to be step one, because you can have the best program in the world, but if the coaching staff and the athletes aren't bought in, you're not going to see the results you want, or build the relationships you want. So I think buy-in is definitely number one. And then I would say number two is just communicating. If things have to change, if things come up, or if something happens on a given day, as long as the communication is there, usually it can be worked out with. But if you don't communicate, and then someone finds out about something that happened on the back end, or it wasn't from you, words can get mixed up, stories can kind of change. I think being a good communicator for sure is another major key.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. Those are key, and keeping it simple too for those kind of first full-time coaches. If you can limit it to like just one or two things, like it's something you can focus on, and then you can make sure all the other stuff just kind of slides by, and then you can
Yeah.
build on that from year to year. So no, that's great advice. What since you've been in this one position for a while, like how do you kind of focus on branching out a little bit more from just kind of the staff you're surrounded by? Like obviously, like there's plentiful resources out there. You can read, you can talk to everybody and stuff like that. But since like Hofstra is the staff that you're always working with, like that's kind of be where your bias is. Is there any benefit from just kind of staying and climbing the ladder in the place you're at as well? Or how do you kind of make sure that you're not becoming stagnant in the one place that you've only been at?
Yeah. I think for sure, I definitely see a big benefit and value in being only at Hofstra. Like I take a lot of pride in being a Hofstra guy. My dad's worked here for over 20 years. My brother went here, my sister went here, I went here. I think it is a cool thing to be, a Hofstra person. Take a lot of pride in that. And yeah, so like being here for so long, being here for not so long, but being here as an intern and as a GA, I think it was really good in that transition period. I had a relationship with the older upperclassmen from the teams I worked with. So transitioning to that interim role made it much easier because I had their help as well. So I had their buy-in already. They knew me, I knew them. So I knew I could lean on them if I needed help in any areas, which was really huge. So I thank the athletes at the time for that, as well as some of the coaching staff. So I knew some of them, not in any crazy manner, but they were familiar with my face, just seeing me at lift sessions or seeing me at conditioning or agility. So that definitely made the transition much easier there. So that's where I see the value in being at only one spot for my whole career. That's where I see it being very, very important. As far as branching out, we go to the CSCCA National Conference every year. So that's a great opportunity to kind of talk to other coaches, gain knowledge from them, kind of see what they're doing, and kind of compare it to what we're doing. So that's a good way to kind of network. A big one for that, I love social media in the aspect as you can kind of start a connection with someone before even meeting them. So as simple as just kind of liking a picture or commenting on a post, commenting on a story, it just makes that first initial interaction much easier. So there's definitely been people that I've never met before in my life, talk to them a little bit over Instagram, and then you go to the national conference and then you see them there, and it's you kind of pick up a little easier. So yeah, definitely branching out at conferences. Stony Brook holds a really good kind of like a Northeast local conference for coaches in the area. It's a little smaller one, which is great because it's just that much easier to talk to people. So we'll definitely make an effort to go to that as well. And then I would say lastly too, site visits to schools in the area. So kind of just checking out other facilities, talking to other coaches, and just seeing what they bring. Because again, I've only been here, but if I can talk to someone that's been at 4 schools before that, I could just gain more knowledge from them. So and even within our staff too, we have Coach Lilly, Coach Dom, and Coach Kelly. They've all been at previous places before Hofstra, so I haven't. So I kind of just see if I can pick their brain a little bit and get some knowledge from their experience.
Yeah, definitely. There's probably a lot of opportunities to kind of go branch out and see see people in the area. Like it's pretty densely populated. There's enough universities around that. I mean, as soon as you can fight through traffic, you probably can get there in a decent amount of time as well. But no, I think you're right too, like kind of nudging people on social media, and then the conference is a perfect time to meet people in person. I think a lot of the people I've had on the show I've never met in person. And then at the conference, it's kind of like cool, like to see like a familiar face from the podcast and be like, oh wow, this is actually the first time we've talked in person. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't really known because we've had so many like little one-off conversations prior to like being here at this moment. So I think it's good. Like social media gets a bad rap for a lot of stuff, but there's definitely some positives you can pull out of it. Um, Kind of touching on the stuff that you were talking about, like the value of like transitioning, like with especially with the athletes already knowing a familiar face and kind of moving up. Um, I experienced it myself, but like playing and then like being elevated from intern and going to GA like at my alma mater, which was kind of its own unique challenges because like I was still living with like former teammates and everything. So it made it super interesting. Like, was there a mindset shift or was there anything like in your coaching style or your approach or technique or like maybe even conversations that you had with the rest of the staff or even with some like specific athletes, like to almost draw the line or like show that like, hey, I'm being elevated. This is more responsibility. Like, I'm maybe taking it a little bit more serious or like I have more accountability that I need to have for a new elevated position. Did that happen at any point in time, or was it just kind of flushed the same the whole way for you?
I mean, I would say it was a little flush, just because I think the internship here is taken so like so seriously, which is a big credit to the previous staff. You know, you don't really get introduced as an intern; you get introduced as a coach. So from day one as an intern, it was Coach DJ. It was never there's the intern DJ. So I really gotta give them a lot of credit for that, just because when you did kind of progress through the roles, again, you're still seen as just the coach. So even though the title may change or you may have more responsibilities, the athletes give a lot of respect to the interns, which is great. So yeah, I mean transitioning like that line is definitely drawn. I think early on, just you can't be out even if you're close in age. You can't be out like hanging out with athletes or seeing them in any inappropriate setting. So it just makes that line more defined and more easily seen. And I think like again, my first year as an intern, I'm from the area too. I only live like 15 minutes away from Hofstra, and most of that is traffic. But yeah, there were some guys I played against in high school that were on Hofstra's baseball team. So like we played against each other, two rival schools. Like it was a some good matchups. So we knew them through playing each other on the field, and then it's like at first it was a little awkward. Like, all right, now I'm your coach. Meanwhile, I'm the same age or younger than you are. Um, but no, they did a good job. The previous staff made a really strong point at making sure they knew that we were not just interns, but we were coaches. So when we did get that, or when I did get the elevation to interim and full time, it was already established. So
No, that's great. That's a great way to kind of handle all that stuff on the front end too, and just to especially to like draw the line with the athletes and to understand that like, hey, we're not bringing in just free help. We're not bringing just in anybody off the street. We're bringing in coaches. It's the same as like a freshman coming into your team. They have less experience than you. Maybe this coach comes in has less experience than me. It doesn't make it any different, or the respect factor isn't changed at all between a captain or a senior, an upperclassman on the team, and a freshman or a walk-on. You're still a part of the team. The same with a coach, like from the director on down to an intern. If you're treating them with the same amount of respect, then you're doing your job right. And I think that's the best way to do it too, because it shows athletes too you're more invested when there's more coaches on the floor to help. They might not be
yeah,
as knowledgeable, but they're learning along the way, and they sure as hell better be pretty passionate about it. Otherwise, they're probably not going to last very long in the profession. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's you walk that fine line, like especially with the having like former like friends and teammates on it. It's super hard in the beginning when you kind of come in and you have like that title of coach, regardless if you're an intern, a volunteer, GA, whatever it is, and you're floating around the same age. I think when I was an intern at one point, we had a guy that was like 4 years older than me.
Yeah,
It was like on one of the lacrosse teams, so they called him Grandpa. And he was like a
yeah, we had one of
yeah,
those.
he was like so old.
Yeah,
And they finally like found out my age like halfway through the internship, and they're like, what the hell? And they're like, bring Grandpa over here. And I started talking to him. I was like, it doesn't matter. It's like it never mattered in the beginning because they were none the wiser, and it didn't matter after because like they knew the body of work that I was doing. So I think if you're an intern coming in, you don't really have to divulge it yes or no either way. If you're putting in the amount of work and effort to prove that like you're worthy of having the title of coach, you're giving them the same amount of respect, then it doesn't matter what age you are.
yeah. I've never I've never really told athletes my age. If they ask, I'll tell them. But I think another thing we learned too was just like carry yourself like you've been there before. Carry yourself like a full timer. So like walking around with the confidence, chest out, standing straight up, head up, kind of surveying the room. Almost make yourself look older or make yourself look more experienced. Just so that line is more firmly drawn in the sand there. And then, but yeah, we definitely had one of our lacrosse guys. He was actually here for a couple of years. Then he went out for a year and then he came back. But there was one day we were at lacrosse practice and the coaches asked me, they're like, oh, how old are you? And I was 22, and they're like, "Oh, you're telling me this guy's 2 years older than you?" I was like, "Yeah." So it's definitely funny when they do find out.
Definitely. Hey, so kind of being younger in the profession, like what maybe are like obviously you're from the area, you have Hofstra pride, which is no pun because that's your
Yeah,
school's logo and everything too. But like what are some of your long-term goals for the profession? Like how far in advance are you kind of looking, and then being kind of shorter in it, like how do you kind of keep that all in perspective, knowing that some people want to be directors, some people want to live and die at the same place. Like how far are you kind of like projecting yourself, or what you kind of want to attain? You don't have to divulge everything because some people like to keep those cards kind of close to their chest, but like how do you kind of objectively look a few steps, a few years forward?
yeah. I think I don't think I look too far down the line, but I'm always a fan of finding a good spot, and then if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I think I could definitely see myself staying at Hofstra for a while. I would love to make a name for myself here, make a name for myself in the strength and conditioning world as a guy from Hofstra. Got a lot of family in the area. I like to be around family, so I think that's very important. So I don't know if I would see myself moving too far necessarily, but I wouldn't mind staying here and maybe, I don't know, who knows down the line, maybe associate director or director, kind of seeing those cards when I get there. But for now, definitely focusing on making the best of the situation I'm in and kind of maximizing my position now, building buy-in, building a culture here, building a reputation in the field, not just at Hofstra, but in the strength field in general.
No, I think that's a great mindset too, because a lot of people like to, just the same as like young coaches seem to program hop. I mean, I fell victim to that as well. A lot of them just try to jump ship, or they're already like their goals are set, dead set on director at a certain, or like in a certain area or whatever, and they try to make all these like little lily pad jumps to get there versus just kind of staying where your feet are planted and doing all the things that would emulate and deserve of the position that you want to be in as your goal. Do it in the place that you're currently at, and then chances are one of those places will become available. It'll be great timing, hopefully, or you'll get seeked out for a position similar to that, and you already emulate all those things you want to do, versus try to get to that position and now turn it on and be like, oh, well, now I'm in the position now I can act like it, versus kind of like we were talking about, like for coaches and like young interns, like act like you've been there before, like act like a director now, and then when a director position becomes available, you'll be able to easily kind of fill that spot and then learn as you go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I'm not looking too far down the line, but just making sure I'm being a solid coach now. And then, we'll see what the future brings.
I like it. Hey, so we talked about a little bit in the very beginning, like kind of going back to your own training. Like, talk me through like what was it like first time on the platform leading up to your powerlifting meet, and what was kind of your rationale, like what motivated you to kind of get under and do a meet?
Yeah, I think so I just think competing in something or training, I would say training for something is very important. So whether it's the athletes now training for their sport, or us as a part of the staff training for something bigger than just kind of staying in shape while you can. But so 2 years ago, I did a strongman competition actually with Coach Ashley, one of the assistants at the time. Never done one before, never thought about doing one. She kind of just threw it out there, and I was like, yeah, sure. So we took the semester to train for that. Remember Saturday mornings, we would go get some strongman equipment, and we would get after it there. Yeah, competed in that 2 years ago. Didn't come anywhere close to first place, but just the environment was next level. It was in Brooklyn, tiny little gym, and the energy there was sick. It was crazy. But so kind of fell in love with competing in strength competitions that day. And then this past year, me and my coworker, Coach Lily Bernardi, we signed up for powerlifting meet. So that was a little bit more up our avenue. We have all the equipment here to train for it. So we kind of took the spring semester to train for that. But no, it was cool. It was cool. She competed on a Saturday, and then I competed on the next day on Sunday. So I was her handler on Saturday, and then Sunday I got to compete. So it was definitely different. My first time doing it. Crazy environment. The energy in the room was awesome. Even from people that, no one's going there to watch me besides my family and my girlfriend, but everyone cheers for each other. Like it was just a good, healthy competition, healthy competitive environment where, the energy just kind of feeds you. It's a long day, so having good energy in the room is good for sure.
Definitely. How was it being a handler? Like it's definitely a different type of coaching, like behind the scenes when you're just kind of preparing one person and just helping them kind of work through their attempts and make sure that they're properly warmed up and kind of fighting off the other competitors and all those outside like distractions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, me and Lily, we train together like every day basically. So it did feel kind of like natural, whereas like we're constantly either competing against each other in our training sessions, trying to outlift one another, or just kind of giving each other guidance on what jump to make next, or should you go for another set, how many reps should you go for. So the conversation of kind of in the handler role felt pretty normal to ones that we usually have. But again, different in the fact of having to work with other handlers, warming up, and having to get a rack for the warm up. And I've never used those racks before, so it's very different equipment, different plates, different even just like a tempo and a pace of a weight room. So it's different, but I think we had a good setup going.
Was there anything big you guys kind of took away from that weekend, or even just like from all the lead up and training going into that meet that is kind of affected or made you reevaluate anything that you use in your programming? Or maybe just coaching style, attempts, mindset, or anything along those lines that like from your own training now you can kind of give back to your athletes and their own programs?
Yeah, I think from both competitions, I had to do like a very tiny weight cut. For the powerlifting meet, for the strongman, I had to do a little bigger one. So I think I cut about 10 pounds for the strongman, and then for the powerlifting meet, I only cut about 5. But for me, I never had to cut weight before, and working with wrestling, sometimes obviously they're cutting weight for their meets. Definitely helped relating to those guys and kind of understanding how they felt when they are in a cut, and now you're asking them to bench, squat, or deadlift. So it definitely made me kind of relate with them and understand them a little bit better in that manner, which I think is huge for just being a coach with that sport. As far as training, it's tough. yeah, I think it just kept us kind of motivated, and kind of training towards something. So I think we had better sessions when we had the meet looming above us coming towards us in May. So I think it's nice to kind of set a date for something, have a plan, and then just execute that plan to hopefully win the meet. So I definitely more to come in the future for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully you guys get something lined up and keep continuing to train. I'd completely agree too. Like I've made weight cuts for two strength sports, and it definitely gave me a lot of insight for my wrestlers, like when I worked with them at Fresno State and American. And I never wrestled, and like doing dabbling in like jujitsu a little bit, like I don't have to make any weight cuts because I refuse to compete in it. Um, but understanding like what it is to like train and like manipulate your weight and be under like kind of fatigue conditions, like that's a different feeling that if you've never experienced it as a coach and understand like what that feels like, subconsciously you kind of do it if you're having a bad day, you're under stress, like that's one thing. But to understand that like, hey, there's a goal, there's a competition coming up, and you're like specifically choosing and you have to like make these specific weight cuts and adjustments, and you're going to have to deal with the repercussions of what that does and affects your training. It's important to kind of know that going in, because it really makes you pick and choose and really think through how your programming is affecting those athletes leading into that weight cut. So
Yeah,
that, I think that's great advice.
no, I think it definitely made me be much more conservative in my programming for those guys. So now I'm kind of trying to, get away from just regular percentages, just because, if I test those guys in the summer when they're feeling great, they have, they're not in class, they're only practicing, they're well fed and well hydrated. Those numbers, they may not be as accurate come December when they're in the middle of their season. They're much lighter. Their stress is through the roof with finals and competition and things like that. So for me, it definitely opened my eyes in that manner, where it's programming for them. I think you got to take it with a grain of salt, and you got to, I think, be a little bit more on the conservative side. Still push them because their sport is so demanding. So those guys definitely get after it. But if you can save them in some aspects, it saves them some physical stress on their body. I think it'll go a long way on the mat.
Definitely, especially if you got those guys that like to yo-yo in the off season and go home and eat stupid like candy and whatever Tootsie Rolls and bullshit that they eat, and they come back 25 pounds overweight and can't break the scale. Yeah, you got to be careful with those guys, especially any sort of percentages. It's a crazy season, and then if you throw in any other folk style, you throw in any other training in the off season, it becomes an Olympic cycle almost for some of those guys.
Yeah.
If they're doing freestyle, they're doing everything. It's it's never ending.
Yeah. So right now, like we're trying to, I'm really messing with, I've done like velocity units for speed work and like power development, which I'm pretty comfortable with that. Little lower percentage. I'm trying to get better at programming velocities with their strength work, just so it's kind of like an auto-regulatory type of approach. Whereas, let's let the speed dictate the load on the bar. So if they're feeling run down, if they are in the middle of a weight cut, let's focus more on the speed of the bar for strength rather than a previous max or a previous percentage.
I like it. Nice. Do you have any competitions like set out right now, or you guys wait until the holidays are over?
No, I think definitely waiting for the holidays are over as far as like strict diet. I like to enjoy the holidays. My grandma cooks some good food, so I gotta take advantage of that. But but no, I think I definitely plan on competing in May or around that time, so like end of the semester. Um, so right now I'm doing 5-3-1, build the monolith, just to kind of get my strength up a little bit. So I'm kind of prepping for that, trying to cut down the weight slowly over the next couple months. I'd like to compete at was it 82.5 kilos. So right now I'm sitting at like closer. I'm like probably like 198, 197 right now. So it'd be a good cut. So I want to learn from previous times and not wait for the last month to make that cut. Let's do it over the course of like 4 months, maybe chip away at it better.
This will be a good experience then.
Yeah, I
It'll
mean,
that'll be
me putting it in the air now will make me stay to the plan. So
there you go. Awesome. Well, make it happen. That means you'll be training probably through CCCA. So
oh, sure.
that'll be a challenge for sure in itself.
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, well, DJ, like any good training session, we end the show with the finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and maybe overtime at the end. So you could take your time and expand on any of the questions, or you can go rapid fire. But you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. First one I got biggest influence in the strength conditioning profession. And right now, favorite strength sport athlete. Maybe it's a power lifter.
For sure, definitely. Coach Jimmy Prendergast, again, former head here, my mentor. Give him a lot of credit in my career. I don't think I wouldn't have been ready for that first step if it weren't for him, and his staff and the culture he built. So definitely still lean on him a lot. Just staying in contact with him, constant texting, phone calls. He's the man. So I definitely biggest mentor for sure would be him. Favorite strength athlete. I would say either, I know Rich Froning, he's not really in it anymore, but his career in CrossFit was pretty wild. I'm not a CrossFit guy. I enjoy doing it on like a Saturday, like a weekend warrior. But like Rich Froning and Matt Frazier, those two guys, I know they battled it out a little bit. But anytime I can watch a documentary on them or like a YouTube video, I think their style of life and their style of training is very interesting. So I'm not competing the way they are. Or in the same sport, but it definitely motivates me to kind of push the envelope a little bit more when I watch their stuff.
Yeah, definitely high level athletes, regardless of what sport. Hey,
Yeah,
so when you're not coaching or competing, what are some of your hobbies outside of the weight room?
yeah. I think getting outside, definitely enjoy that. So anytime I can, whether it's throw a podcast on, kind of go for a walk or a bike ride, um, yeah, doing anything outside, walking my dogs, and just kind of hanging out. Honestly, I like to de-stress. So anytime I can get away from work, I don't mind it. If I'm not outside, I'm probably inside watching a movie or binge watching a show. So I enjoy my documentaries or conspiracy theories, stuff like that. I can dive into like aliens and ancient civilizations all day.
All right. Hey, so if you weren't coaching, what do you think you would be doing as a profession right now?
Yeah, I think I probably would have went that PT route, physical therapist. I think I was so close to starting the application process. I was probably a couple months away, so I would have probably went through with that, applied to PT school, and I'd probably be wrapping up right now actually. So I'd probably be almost done graduating. So probably
It's a long process.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I got a couple of friends in it right now, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine still being in class every day and taking tests and finals. So
Yeah, it's a long process. I almost went down that route, and then after realizing that I was missing one class, I knew it would have taken over 4 years, and I was like, that's enough. I'm
yeah,
done. No more school. Hey, so setting up you got your May date ready for powerlifting. It's a training session a couple weeks out. All right. What is playing on the speakers for one of your attempts? And what is the best post-training meal after you're done training that day?
sure. I was looking forward to this question. All right, so if it goes with an attempt, it definitely depends on what the lift is. Squat or deadlift is going to be something a little angry. So probably like maybe Linkin Park or something in that like kind of like we call it hate music. Corn. Kind of blanking on names right now, but definitely got some good songs lined up for that. So definitely something angry in the rock realm. And then if it's like a bench day, I provided that I can go with a little EDM or a little rap, so something like that. But it's got to be loud, and I got to be feeling it that day for sure. Post training meal, we've been usually it's Chipotle. That's nice and close to campus. We got one like 2 minutes away, but recently new spot Kava. I don't know if it's new to me, so I don't really know where they are, but it's basically like a a Mediterranean Chipotle. So that's been my go-to now. A little expensive, but it's pretty good. I don't feel guilty eating it, so I can get a big bowl. Fills me up, and it's pretty solid stuff. It's good.
I'll have to look for one.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, well, last one I got for you for overtime. Um, what is your favorite part of coaching and your favorite part of competing?
Hmm. Yeah, favorite part of coaching. I think the relationships you build. I think I was the type of athlete that I used to love going back and like visiting old coaches. So like when I was in high school, going back to the middle school and kind of visiting coaches I had then, staying in touch, kind of just seeing where they're at, them seeing where you're at. Even now, I still stay in touch with my high school coaches. So that was one goal I had as a coach now. I do want my former athletes to look forward to coming back and kind of staying in touch. So anytime an athlete does come back, I definitely get a little excited and happy that they made it an effort and they took time out of their day to come back and kind of reconnect and see me. I think that'll be really cool down the line. So I think building the connections and the relationships, that's definitely my favorite part. As far as being a coach. And then I'm sorry, the second part.
Favorite part of competing now?
Favorite part of competing. I think it's that feeling of competing right before you're about to go. So outside of the powerlifting meet, I also played in a men's league, men's baseball league this summer with some guys I used to play with in high school. But I think those jitters don't go away, even if it's something as little as a summer league for men's baseball. We made it to the championship, and like I still felt like I was back in high school playing or younger again. Even though the stakes were way lower, there were barely any fans there, and we're all old guys now. But the feeling of going to a game, or the feeling of being backstage, walking onto the platform, and you see the bar just waiting there for you, that doesn't go away. So it comes a little bit fewer now, just because we're not competing as much. But anytime you can compete, that feeling is definitely special for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a special feeling. And I think as soon as that goes away and you don't feel that anymore, it's probably time to kind of walk away.
Yeah,
Hopefully that never dies. But yeah, you're right. The stakes kind of change, but it still feels so good no matter if you're in front of one person in the crowd, nobody, or 1,000 people. It's still fun to go out and compete. And I completely agree too with like athletes coming back. I think that's probably one of the cool things about being at a place for a long time, that people that end up bouncing around they'll never get to really experience unless athletes specifically reach bat. But if there's someone that's like you that grew up around Hofstra and Hofstra was their dream school to go to, they play sports there, they go there, like they're going to want to invest in that university and come back and see it. It's a little bit different when someone goes out of state and they just go and text someone. But if they're coming back for homecoming, they want to go see their old staff, and most of the time they're not there. So if you're able to stay in that place and stay connected with them and you build a genuine relationship while they're there, it's pretty cool to see them come back and like have families or like talk about all the things that they've been doing since they've been gone that might not even be anywhere near athletics related. It's a pretty cool experience that hopefully like if you stay there for a long time, you'll start to see more and more.
for sure. No, it's something I value, and again, like I get fired up when I see my old coaches. So I just hope to kind of get that on the flip side, for sure.
Awesome, man. Hey, well, thanks again for coming on today. For anybody that's got any questions for you, wants to follow along and keep tabs with your upcoming meet that you're going to schedule right after this, leading into May, where can they follow along and get a hold of you?
Yeah, I would say Instagram is definitely probably the best route. Shoot me a DM, throw a follow. The tag is at DJ underscore Melgar one. That's definitely probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. And then email for anybody that needs it. It's douglas.j.melgar@hofstra.edu. But again, Instagram probably the easiest and the quickest response.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll link everything in there. So anybody that's got any questions or, like I said, want to follow along, they'll know exactly how to get a hold of you. So, hey, I appreciate you coming on today, DJ, and hopefully enjoy the rest of the holidays and have a good break eat good, and then start making the weight cut after that.
Absolutely. No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. Take care.
You as well.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.